Chapter 50. When it reappears, roar. The blood dragon opened its mouth and charged towards Gu Hai. Couldn't get out. Gu Hai didn't think to try again. Instead, he flipped his hand and took out his flying boat and quickly fled through the city. Shoo! In the twinkling of an eye, Gu Hai flew into the distance. Humph! Flee! Where are you going to escape? In the middle of the blood dragon longevity formation, you also want to escape, Mr. Dongfang said with a scowl on his face. Boom! The blood dragon quickly traveled through the city. For the others, it didn't care anymore. Mr. Dongfang wanted to swallow Gu Hai quickly. Brother-in-law, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. Long Wen Yu stood on top of the flying boat, outside the formation in chagrin, her face showing anxiety. County Master, you don't have to worry. Since Mr. Gu told you to go first, there must be a way, Sima Feng comforted. Long Wen Yu didn't pay any attention to it at all, but instead looked at Ru Lu and said, that sword talisman, does brother-in-law still have it? No more. It was gifted by the two earlier, a total of 2. Ru Lu shook his head. Sima Feng, however, glared. Would it kill you to say more? What if the county princess can't think of anything else? Only 2. Have you used them all, brother-in-law? You mustn't be all right. Long Wen Yu clenched her fists, her face showing anxiety. Rumble. Inside the grand formation, flames erupted from the western part of the city, and a large amount of dry drought demon fire surged out wildly. The blood dragon, however, only chased after Gu Hai, and the 4 parties of cultivators were able to catch their breath. On the other side, Qin Zibai and Jail Great King remained in a stalemate with each other. Hu. In the blink of an eye, the blood dragon had already arrived in front of them. Gu Hai's face was gloomy. Suddenly, Gu Hai thought of what Cripple had said earlier. Qing Feng and I will leave first. That woman is going to come out. Hey, with my current strength, I can't help her. Farewell. Seal. Under the Dragon Vein City. Who is being pressed? West of the city. East of the city. All of you want to go out, Gu Hai bellowed. The 4 parties of cultivators gave a slight lurch. There's an underground palace seal in the east of the city. I'm sure you all know where it is. Break it and we'll be saved. I'll lead the blood dragon. You guys break the underground palace. Gu Hai let out a loud shout. Boom. The sound instantly traveled into the 4 directions of the city. Seal, Earth Palace. At that instant, a large number of cultivators rushed towards the underground palace in the east of the city without hesitation. Mr. Dongfang, however, steeply raised his eyelids. What do you know, bastard, must not. Why can't I? Gu Hai said in a cold voice. HMPH, I'll kill you first. If you don't die, you'll always be a scourge. As if he was possessed, Mr. Dongfang manipulated the blood dragon to charge at Gu Hai. It was Gu Hai who noticed that the blood dragon intentionally avoided the drought demon fire in the west of the city. You're afraid of fire. Gu Hai steeply narrowed his eyes. Whew. The flying boat flew into the air above the fire, and the blood dragon also flew high, trying to avoid the fire as much as possible. Hey, it's best if you have something to be afraid of, Gu Hai sneered. Gu Hai circled around the constantly erupting flames at a low altitude, and the blood dragon's huge body was suddenly constrained in every way. Barely. As expected, when the drought demon's flame touched the blood dragon, bursts of black smoke immediately emerged from the blood dragon's body, as if it was being burnt. You really are afraid of fire. Haha. Gu Hai's eyes lit up. As long as the blood dragon was afraid of fire, then the blood dragon could be slowly lured to be affected, and sooner or later, there would be a day when the blood dragon's power was consumed. Gu Hai flew above the fire. In the distance, a group of cultivators were opening the underground palace in the eastern part of the city and destroying the seal. Mr. Dongfang had an anxious look on his face. and once he clenched his teeth, his face showed a grimace. Ong! Steeply, the blood dragon seemed to defy everything, allowing the fire to burn on its body. The whole body coiled around, forming a large encircling circle, wrapping Guhai's flying boat so that it had nowhere to escape. And the dragon's head pressed down from above, pressing the flying boat towards the center of the flames below. Died together. Guhai's face sank, raw. Above, it was the large mouth that covered the sky. Upwards it was instantly swallowed. In all directions was the body of the blood dragon. There was nowhere to go but below. Below was the rolling fire. There, there. The blood dragon was fully incinerated by the great fire, and rolling black smoke came out. But, facing Guhai, it seemed to simply disregard it. The flying boat could only be pressed towards the sea of fire by the circling blood dragon. Die in the same place. You're underestimating my blood dragon. Indeed, this fire can hurt the blood dragon, but it's only hurt. The blood dragon swallowed everyone and accumulated power just so it could burn in the fire for a while longer and enter the flaming ground, the fire of the drought demon. Guhai, if you don't die today, I will have lost all my efforts, although my loss is also tragic. But as long as you die and the blood dragon eats the others, the blood dragon will be able to return to its peak again. Go to hell. Mr. Dongfang roared throughout his life. Boom! The blood dragon's head crashed down, and instantly it shattered the flying boat into a large fire. The place of that great fire was the previous altar suppression mouth, resembling a volcanic crater, gushing out rolling drought demon fire. The flying boat shattered apart, and Guhai was blasted into the depths of that crater. No, brother-in-law, outside. Long when you cried out in terror. Guhai was smashed into that crater. Your Majesty, giant foam exclaimed. The fire of the drought demon. Wouldn't Mr. Gu be? Sima Feng's face changed. However, the next moment, he glanced at Long Wenyu. Sima Feng was worried that she would mess up again, so he immediately forced himself to calm down and said, Mr. Gu should be fine, right? Brother-in-law was burnt to death. Brother-in-law, woo-woo. Long Wenyu revealed a wave of despair. Sheriff, the Emperor is still alive. A person on the side spoke up. Brother-in-law was engulfed in fire, and is still alive. How do you know? Long Wenyu said in grief. I am an official of the Great Han Dynasty. The Great Han's Cheluk is near. If something happens to the Emperor, the Cheluk of my Great Han Dynasty will all collapse. That way I also have a sense. Now, the Cheluk is still the same. So, the Emperor is still alive. The man spoke. Really? Long Wenyu was instantly excited. Don't dare to lie. That Great Han official nodded. Brother-in-law, you must come out. You must. I will listen to you from now on. Long Wenyu looked at the crater below, in prayer. To the west of the city was the crater, and to the east of the city was the underground palace. A large number of cultivators ran to the underground palace to destroy it. The blood dragon pressed Guhai into the crater. Mr. Dongfang was sure that Guhai was dead, and maneuvered the blood dragon to rush up into the sky all of a sudden, heading towards the east of the city. The blood dragon had a large area of scorching on its body. Obviously the previous fire did not do much damage to the blood dragon. Assholes, don't move the underground palace. I'll eat you. Mr. Dongfang roared with a scowl on his face. The burnt blood dragon immediately rushed towards the underground palace in a roar. What Mr. Dongfang didn't notice was that the moment Guhai was pressed towards the crater, a red-clothed figure instantly also scurried into the fire. Inside the crater, Guhai's clothes were incinerated in an instant. The fire burned his body. The pain was incomparable. A large number of bones emerged from the surface of his body, trying to resist the drought demon's fire. Buzz! The bones that used to be incomparably strong were all vaporized in the blink of an eye under this great fire. The fire god palace opened with all its might, absorbing the great fire on the surface of the body. However, there were too many of these great fires, and the previous trace of sparks took half a day to absorb and burned his arm. And now there were great fires in all directions. It simply couldn't be blocked. To be finished, being burnt to death here. The fire was so fierce that Gu Hai's consciousness was suddenly a little blurred. Right at this moment, a figure steeply arrived next to Gu Hai and grabbed him. In a blur, Gu Hai could see the face of the visitor. Fairy Wana, why haven't you left the city? Quickly go. It's dangerous here, Gu Hai said weakly. But it was Fairy Wana, who was currently biting her lips and looking at Gu Hai in the great fire. The great fire could not help Fairy Wana, but because she was the body of a fire cauldron. Previously, Qin Zibai and Xian were also dealing with Fairy Wana because of this, before being saved by Gu Hai. However, the Gu Hai in front of him had already been burnt to the skin. The fire of the drought demon has entered your body. Even if you go out, you'll be burnt to death. Unless my Yuan Ying enters your body and helps you absorb and refine the flames. A trace of struggle flashed in Fairy Wana's eyes. However, after struggling for just a moment, Fairy Wana's eyes suddenly turned resolute, and she suddenly stepped forward to suddenly hug Gu Hai, and her hot and wet lips suddenly pressed onto Gu Hai's burnt lips. Buzz! Immortal Wana's clothes also instantly disappeared into thin air and hugged Gu Hai. In a daze, Gu Hai suddenly felt that his heaven and earth great compassion fugue was automatically running. The heaven and earth great compassion fugue. It only operates when performing male and female acts. At this moment, Gu Hai suddenly felt a coolness in his body and an instinctive movement. Buzz, where his lower body was, the source of the coolness, but it was as if a ball of something entered his body, and wherever he went, the flames in his body surged into that ball of coolness. Gu Hai's consciousness gradually woke up, and a wisp of consciousness entered the fire god palace. However, he saw that it was Fairy Wana's Yuanyi. It was it that had entered his body again, entering his fire god palace. When a fairy's Yuanying settled in the fire god palace, at the place where Gu Hai's Yuanying embryo was, seemingly communicating with each other, the rolling drought demon flame in his body was absorbed in its entirety. Part of it was absorbed by one of Fairy's Yuanying, and part of it was refining and transferring to the Yuanying embryo. Steeply, Gu Hai's Yuanying embryo broke through a crack, and a large amount of flames were crazily absorbed by the suction force at that crack. Boom! In the outside world, Gu Hai and Fairy Wana **** mingled together, while with Gu Hai as the center, the surrounding dry drought demon flame was madly surging into Gu Hai's body in general. Under Fairy Wana's Yuanying protection, the dry demon fire could no longer harm Gu Hai. Instead, it was nourishing Gu Hai's body and growing the power of Gu Hai's Yuanying. The burnt parts of Gu Hai's body quickly scabbed over and fell, slowly recovering his previous skin, even a little whiter. Embryo broken, second level of Yuanying realm. It's still growing, this power. Gu Hai's consciousness became clearer and clearer. Gu Hai finally knew what was going on. Fairy Wana was trying to save herself. While his body made instinctive movements, his eyes opened to look at Fairy Wana. At this moment, Fairy Wana's eyes were mesmerized into silk, and she seemed to be intoxicated by the changes in her body as she let out a soft sound. After a while, Fairy Wana's body steeply trembled with a spasm. Boom! A loud whirring sound was emitted from Fairy Wana's body, and a different and powerful aura emanated out. In a daze, Fairy Wana opened her eyes. Me. How did I suddenly open the heavenly palace?